Do you know why Japan bought broken glass from the Soviet Union? And then took it and threw it into the sea? Probably because the Japanese are stupid. Yes, stupid, but not the Japanese. In the 70s, Japan did buy a large shipment of broken glass from the Soviet Union for a mere penny. As soon as Japan received the glass, they immediately threw the glass into the sea. There was no damage to the ecosystem. Then why did they have to do all this? The Japanese weren't interested in broken glass at all, but the crates in which the glass was delivered was another matter. Japan lacked its own wood, but Soviet glass was carefully packed in crates made of natural cedar. The Japanese made expensive furniture out of the disassembled crates. Over the years, the water sanded the glass and it turned out a beautiful multicolored coast. For many years, multicolored pebbles are still brought to Japanese and Sakhalin beaches. Earlier people believed, and it is said that they still do, because it still happens. After this, the human soul leaves the body only when the human body will completely disappear. That is, there will be complete decomposition. The skeletonization of the body takes from 5 to 30 years, depending on weather conditions and other factors. In order for the richest and most influential to have a free place in paradise, they were cremated. That is, they were burned. It was believed that this way the soul goes straight to paradise, or some other place as the case may be. The common people have nothing to do in paradise, so let them rot in the ground for another 30 years. That's what the rich have decided, so they still bury the common people 2 meters into the ground. Human DNA contains the entire genetic code of mankind. I see. What's next? Yes, that recently these two comrades have calculated that every 372 million years its genetic complexity doubles. So what's next? Just some numbers. And here's the thing, we know how many years the complexity of DNA doubles, so we can count backwards and figure out when the simplest DNA appeared. Roughly speaking, the very first one. After doing the math, it turns out that the DNA in our bodies has been around for 10 billion years. However, our planet has been around for 4.5 billion years. Hence the simple conclusion. Life existed 5.5 billion years before our planet existed. Have you ever wondered, neither Pushkin would have passed the use. He was a double digit, nor Mozart, nor Beethoven, nor Yesenin, Gogol, no one. Each of them was brilliant in one thing. Music, literature, technology, manufacturing, and other narrow areas, but not vast. So do not be upset when you do not pass the use. It's not a big deal. It's just done by the state on purpose to fuck up your future life. That's all. 56 years ago, scientist John Calhoun decided to conduct an experiment, after which it became scary only today. John created the perfect living conditions for mice. Unlimited supplies of food and water, the temperature of the dwelling, the mice lived in a spacious room, they were not sick, there were no predators. Gradually, the mice began to degenerate. They stopped reproducing, the level of aggression increased. They became very lazy, slow-moving. The females began to eat their young. And that's despite the unlimited variety of food. And males were increasingly seen in same-sex relationships. And as time went on, the number of same-sex relationships between males only grew. Deprived of the purpose of prey, of survival, the mice degenerated. Eventually, the entire colony of mice became extinct. Of course, because the females ate their offspring, and the males stopped having sexual relations with females, only among themselves, between men. 25 times the experiment was conducted, and all 25 times the scenario was exactly the same. Total extinction of the colony. Then in 1968, people concluded that humanity needed to survive all the time, needed to fight and not relax. Today, in 2024, when men are increasingly becoming not men, and women do not want to give birth, want to live just to get high. Today, that experiment is becoming more relevant. Some believe that economically developed countries are bigger and closer to the sad outcome, like the experiment with the mice. Therefore, for balance, other countries must have poverty, devastation, and survival in other countries. If the Earth were a few percent closer to the sun, we would all burn up. If it were a few percent farther from the sun, we would all freeze. If the Earth rotated a few percent faster, we'd have winds raging at 400 or more kilometers per hour. If the rate of rotation were to slow down, then the usual temperature on the surface of the Earth would be a degree 100 Celsius. The planet Jupiter protects our Earth from comets and asteroids. If Jupiter were a few degrees closer to the sun, it would be protecting Venus rather than Earth. If Jupiter were a few degrees farther from the sun, it would protect not Earth but Mars. Is this an accident or what? Let's not be so global. If simple bees disappear from the Earth, all life will be gone in literally a couple years. Listen carefully, this is a true story. Many years ago, a 6-year-old girl named Helga wrote a letter to God before Christmas, asking God to give her 100 stamps for the holiday. In Finland, only a certain authority has the right to open letters with the wrong address. The girl's unusual request reached the president of the country. He read the letter. The return address was correct, so, being not far from the girl, the president personally decided to take the return letter with the gift to the girl. However, deciding that 50 stamps would be enough for such a little girl, he brought the letter, threw it in the mailbox and left. Soon the president received a return letter from the girl addressed to the Lord God. She wrote, "My Lord, thank you for the gift." Then the whole street gawked at the president's stopped car and himself. Idealize you could give me the gift yourself. Please don't give gifts to anyone else through the president, because he stole half of it from me. And another story, please listen to this one, it's very interesting, although it's no longer a real essay story. Well, at least that's what they say, it's not a real story. Death with a scythe came to a blacksmith and asked him to sharpen his scythe. The blacksmith is terrified to sharpen the scythe, frightened and sure that now he will sharpen the scythe and Death will take his life with the same scythe. Let me think. What have I got to lose? I say, I can't believe I'm holding a weapon that has mowed down so many people. Death replies in a woman's gentle voice, I never killed anyone. Not one person. It's not me. You're the ones killing each other. Are you blaming me? I used to be a beautiful girl. I used to meet people's soul and escort them to heaven. And today I'm dressed in black so I don't get stained with people's blood. I wore a hood so that my tears and fear of what people do with their lives and how they destroy each other could not be seen. And today I am an old woman. It was you who made me this way, said Death. Taking her scythe, she turned to leave. Suddenly the blacksmith asks quietly, why do you need the scythe? Death replies, the road to paradise has long been overgrown with grass. It's been a long time since I've taken anyone there. I only to the other side where the path is well traveled. In the last century, coffee was first brought to Japan. Nestle wanted to be the first to conquer the Japanese market. But instead of profits, Nestle lost money. On advertising, realization of coffee, the Japanese did not appreciate the bitter taste of the drink. Although the Europeans at this time are already very much hooked on a cup of second-tenth coffee. Today, Nestle wanted to leave the Japanese market, but decided to use all methods to sell the Japanese market and sell coffee to the Japanese and make money. They even hired a psychologist. This psychologist conducted various surveys among the local population, and when asked what flavor of a drink from childhood you remember, Japanese adults answered tea. After all, for centuries, maybe even millennia, the Japanese had been drinking the national drink. Then Nestle released candies, chocolates with coffee flavor, which immediately became popular. Such an interesting flavor the Japanese have not yet tasted, in order to accustom the Japanese to the taste of coffee from an early age. In a few years, coffee sales would grow like our taxes. Today, Nestle is the largest coffee supplier to Japan. Every year the company sells 500 million tons of coffee in Japan. Do you remember Kodak? Where did it disappear to? After all, this company was the largest camera brand of camcorders in the whole world. The mistake that Kodak management made was in December 1975. That's when Kodak employee Steven Sesson went to his superiors to announce his incredible discovery, the digital camera. Film was no longer needed, he insisted. Everything had become much simpler and faster. However, Kodak management laughed at the Steven. At the time, Kodak made their main profit from selling camera film, not the cameras themselves, so such an offer would have ruined the whole company. They refused to let Steven put his digital stuff on the assembly line. Still, the engineer with his team from Kodak was able to present in 1975 the world's first prototype digital camera Kodak management. The company's management only told off Steven for wasting the budget, because the quality of pictures was much inferior to film, and the first digital camera weighed 3.5 kilograms. Steven then turned to another company called Sony. At that time, Sony was Kodak's biggest competitor. The engineer was immediately invited to work at Sony with an obscenely large salary. Soon in 1981, that is 6 years after the presentation of its prototype digital camera to Kodak management, Sony released the world's first digital camera, gradually but surely lowering the weight, improving the quality of pictures, capturing the market. Over the years, decades, Sony was able to beat the competition in a fair fight. People were increasingly buying digital cameras. Eventually, on January 19, 2012, Kodak filed for bankruptcy. The lesson to be learned from this lesson is this: what worked in the past may no longer work today. It is necessary to adapt to the rapidly changing world. After all, not for nothing they say, it is not the richest, not the smartest who survive, but those who are the fastest who know how to adjust to new conditions. This pocket on the grass was created by a sad architect. The leaf is folded so evenly, the joints fitted perfectly, better than the wallpaper in your room. But the most interesting thing happens on the inside. Mama Bagwem lays her eggs, guarding the babies and never leaves the cradle for a second, neither to eat nor drink. The long-awaited start of a new life is coming. Spiderlings have grown up and are leaving the cocoon. Each of them is hungry, but they don't know how to hunt yet. Mom offers herself as the first food. Dozens of spiderlings suck all the liquid out of Mom for days. When Mom dies down for good, without a drop of fluid inside, the spiderlings crawl outside and begin to weave their traps. A victim falls in there, and already from her they will suck their food. And when the time comes, they'll start to roll their cradle out of the grass to lay their offspring and sacrifice themselves. For 25 years, we didn't need batteries for the TV remote control. We didn't even need to point the remote at the TV. The thing about these remotes was that they used sound. When you pressed a button, there was a clicking sound. Ultrasound. People can't hear that sound. The sound is transmitted to the TV and the channel is activated. It's a pretty sophisticated and lightweight system, but there was a problem with this remote control. Other sounds could accidentally activate the TV. Sounds coming from the kitchen, even animal sounds. And that's where the infrared remote control came in. Thanks to infrared light, it's now easier to change channels. But now you have to point the remote directly at the TV for the light to reach the TV. Plus you need batteries. Meet this man's name is Nicholas, otherwise known as Kolya.
Korea, the 21st century's epitome of justice.
He's also a real asshole. That's what they call him on both sides of the barricade, either justice or asshole. Kolya reports improperly parked cars to the police every day. Why would he do that? To spend several hours a day, every day, to denounce his compatriots. The thing is, snitching is commonplace in Germany, and probably half the population there is not the epitome of justice. If they are paid for it, there is sure to be a Kolya who will study traffic rules and write fines in Germany, sending them to the appropriate authorities. Certain authorities themselves are not happy that such a gutti. After all, thanks to him the police have to write out fines only on Kolya's tip for $14,000 a month. Although the police themselves admit that at least half of the fines they would not write, since they realize that the violation is not serious and there is nowhere to park a car in this place. It's not in anyone's way. For his very good parenting, Nicholas was once beaten up, so much so that he had to go to the hospital. But the hospital said, dude, you got nothing. But Kali got a judgment from the insurance company. Good for you, entrepreneur, what can I say? All entrepreneurs must be like that. But Avenger was back on his two-wheeled dog soon enough. However, others opened a fundraiser on their own initiative to help Kolya. They raised literally in a couple of days $5,000 out of $100,000. The money was transferred to Kolya, although the guy himself earns good money every day, which is this denunciation. And AB asks police to denounce when he really violates traffic rules. This man, Kolya, has perfectly studied traffic rules and proceeds to fix the violation only when 100% sure of the violation. In total, Kolya earns about $2,000 every month for denunciations, and you would for $2,000, yes or no? Think about it. And you don't even have to go to Germany and Russia. They have already developed or are finishing to develop exactly the same system of fines. So while you're thinking, some Pasha is already studying traffic rules so that you can one day be fined 5,000 rubles. But that's not the end of it. Nikola once said that he'd rat on his own mom too if she broke the law. By the way, here's the cherry on the cake. Kolya has created a snitching agency that has already brought him over $1 million. There is a scientist who has been trying for over 50 years to do what others think is impossible. He wants to create a time machine. 50 years ago, Ronald's dad left our world. The boy longed for his dad, and soon, after reading the book The Time Machine by Herbert Wells, the boy decides to build his own time machine, go back to 1955 and save his dad. I hope my daddies. However, it doesn't turn out to be as easy as he initially thought. After decades of unsuccessful attempts to go back in time, Ronald realized. At this point, there was only one possible scenario for going back in time: a black hole. After all, the gravity of a black hole is so great that it bends time itself, making it possible to go back in time. Of course, the scientist is not going to fly to the black hole. He's going to recreate the effect of time warp through rotating laser beams. In theory, it's possible, and it can be done on Earth. Many scientists have confirmed it. But even if Ronald succeeds in recreating a time machine from laser beams, he can only maximize time travel back to the point where the time machine is 100% working correctly. It still doesn't work 100% correctly, but Ronald says he's on track. It's a big step to later realizing what seems impossible to humanity right now. This is the Empress of Ireland. She sank just 2 years after the Titanic. Took about the same number of lives as the Titanic. The Empress was built for a similar route across the North Atlantic. After Titanic, this ship, like many others, was equipped with more and better quality lifeboats. But in the case of the Empress, it didn't matter. Early one morning in May 1914, a fog suddenly appears. Despite this, the Empress set off while another vessel was coming towards the Empress. The collision was surprisingly gentle and almost imperceptible. The second vessel turned out to be an icebreaker, so the Empress was cut in two like a butter knife by the second vessel. The ship split in two so quickly that it was not even possible to launch lifeboats. If the Titanic sank for 2 hours and 40 minutes, it took the Empress only 14 minutes after the collision to completely submerge. 150,000 people drowned on the Empress, on a scale no inferior to the tragedy of the Titanic. But few people talk about it, because just 2 months later, the First World War began. Mankind had other concerns. For the first time in history, people were able to communicate in their dreams. 2 people had been put into a state of conscious sleep. It's already clear what it is: conscious dreaming. Well, yeah. During the dream, both people were able to exchange messages. A server, Wi-Fi, and a bunch of wires were used for this. Both participants in the experiment slept in their homes. When it was recorded that one participant in the experiment had fallen asleep, a word was sent to him, and it was sent through headphones. The participant repeated the word aloud. As he continued to sleep, the word was stored on the server. When the second participant fell asleep, the same word was spoken to him through the earpiece in the voice of the first server. The second subject also said the word aloud. Thus it was proven that people can communicate during sleep. This image is 2.5 million years old. Yes, you might think, who could have taken 2.5 million years to take this picture? But it's much simpler than that. Or maybe it's more complicated, depending on how you look at it. If there was any life recorded at this point, it's long gone. These photos of the Andromeda Galaxy were taken in 2015 by the Hubble telescope. Andromeda is 2.5 million light-years away from us. That means this image is 2.5 million years old, since that's how long it takes for light to reach us. On the scale of the universe, 2.5 million years is like 1 second out of your life. So it's entirely possible that Andromeda still looks like that. But if there is life there, and they point the exact same telescope as our Hubble in our direction, they won't see us. They'll see prehistoric Earth before humans existed.
No one in the Andromeda galaxy will know we exist.
And galaxies even further away would see Earth.
When dinosaurs walked the earth.
And if those beings, if they live in the Andromeda Galaxy or further away, they take a photo and they see people on Earth, they decide to come to us and look at us, they will not see our planet. Because their journey will take millions of years, and when they come here, they will not see the Earth or the Sun, because by that time the Sun will completely destroy our planet. The creatures won't even realize that, most likely. They'll just fly on, thinking they've chosen the wrong course. What will be left of us, of all life on our planet now, will just be a void in space. And that's a fact. It's just a matter of time. How did one of the most prestigious prizes in the world, the Nobel Prize, come about? Alfred Nobel was a Swedish chemist, engineer, and inventor. Nobel invented many things, but is best known as the inventor of dynamite. His scientific achievements made Nobel some of the richest people in the world at the time. In 1882, an incident happened that changed everything. One of Nobel's brothers died. A French newspaper mistakenly published an article where it wrote about Alfred's own death. The headline went like this:
The merchant of this is dead.
With the implication that Nobel had made a fortune creating weapons of destruction. This event shocked Nobel. He did not want to be remembered as a man who brought only destruction to the world. Then Alfred decides to change his will. In today's money, that's hundreds of billions of dollars. Hundreds of billions of dollars. Back then, it was $200 million. That's all it was. He decides to use all the money he's earned throughout his life to create an award. This prize will be awarded to the people who have done the most good for humanity. Nobel set up a foundation, a group of people who manage his fortune and will give the prize every year. That was his plan. And so after Nobel's death, these people did not loot his money. 5 years after Nobel's death in 1901, the first Nobel Prize was awarded. And this prize has been awarded for 124 years in a row and is considered the most prestigious award in the world, the Nobel Prize. Japanese scientists are about to start growing humans in laboratories, and it's true. They say that in just a few years they will be able to grow humans in laboratories. The Japanese have learned how to create human sperm and eggs, and from them create embryos outside of a woman. On mice, the experiment was successful. To do this, they took a cell from a male, from a mouse, and created a sperm cell. They took a cell from a female mouse and created an egg. They fertilized the whole thing, put it in an artificial uterus, and raised 6 mice. They're no different from real mice. That's the whole point. You could take cells from human blood or skin and recreate a new human being, but it won't be an exact copy or even remotely similar to the person from whom the cells are taken. It will be a completely different person. So far there is not a single living created person, which I personally doubt. It's very tempting for scientists, and they've obviously been raising lab babies for a long time. Studies show that the human Y chromosome, which makes men masculine, is slowly disappearing. If you look at the DNA structure of men and women have 2 X chromosomes. Men have an X and a Y chromosome. Studies show that from the DNA of men, the Y chromosome is regularly shrinking and will completely disappear from the DNA of men in the future. This means that men will eventually disappear as a species, which means there will be a slight fertility problem. Why small? You may recall the previous video.
Yes, the world is changing.
And it's changing very fast. What was the world like 30 years ago? Think back.
No smartphones, no internet.
Reliable but uninteresting cars. It seems like 30 years ago it was almost like the Stone Age. And what's going to happen 30 years from now? To that generation, our children who are born today, our days will seem like the Stone Age to them. It's hard to imagine what technologies will exist 30 years from now, but they will definitely be such that we will look back on today with nostalgia and say that things used to be better. Even though now it seems life is difficult and unbearable. So that's it. Maybe I'll do another installment.